All right, we can go ahead and get started.
Well, good afternoon, everyone, or good evening, I should say. Welcome to the Reinvest Toledo Open House. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Amelia Gibbon, and I have the pleasure of serving as the executive director. A couple of other board members that are coming on, so I'm just going to wait a minute to let them get on board so we can start with the introductions of our board members. Welcome, Ms. Price. Ms. Tashana, it's good to see you as well.
Hello.
Pleasure to be here.
Okay, well, let's just go ahead and get started with our introductions. I have some of our board members with us. I'd like to introduce. Crystal will highlight them and bring them forward so everyone can see. Our awesome board members. We'll start with our board chair, Mr. Montrese Terry. See that enthusiasm? He brings it every time to the table, every time. We also have with us Dawn Frison. She serves as our vice chair of the board. And we have with us, join us also, Mr. Steve Seaton. Mr. Seaton is a board member and always a welcome voice to our work. Steve, it's good to see you.
Guys muted. You guys can unmute if you like.
I want to also acknowledge our board members that were unable to join us this evening. Shantae Brownlee, Lucas County Land Bank, Officer Tracy Britt, representing the East Toledo community, Summer Claiborne, our board secretary, Kalina Ali, our board treasurer, and Mr. Mike Baddock, board member. So we are definitely missing them today, but I think those of us who are here can carry on and make this an eventful and really rewarding conversation. I want to start by introducing our guests. If you would say your name, and if you are representing an association, organization, or if you're an interested community member. I want everyone to know that later on this evening, you will have the opportunity to raise your voice in another matter. So please be respectful of our time and just tell us who you are and again, who you represent. Crystal, you want to do the roll call? Or first, let me introduce everyone to Crystal Taylor. Crystal is my operations assistant in the Sandbox, but she's also the owner of Crystal Clear Communications. Crystal is the reason why I do not whimper when it comes to technology or grant writing. She allows me to breathe in those areas. So Crystal wants to do the introductions for everyone and guide that process.
Sure, no problem. So everyone, you can go ahead and unmute. And when you see your picture become large on the screen, that means you are on the stage. So if you would please just give us your name and the organization you belong with, or if you're not with an organization, just let us know you're a community member and we will move through this relatively quickly and move on with the rest of the program. So give me 1 second. All right, start.
Hello, my name is Andrea Price. I work as the Artist Services Manager and I'm a representative of the Arts Commission in Toledo.
Joining us today. Next we have
Hello, my name is Calvin Golightly, and I'm with the North End Community Committee. Nice meeting everyone.
hello. Miss Charlotte.
Oh, sorry. Charlotte Lawson, I'm community member. Sorry, I'm being disconnected already. Sorry.
How you doing?
I'm good.
Good. Next. Oh. Miss Hayes, Lakeisha. I
All
can't put-
right. Good evening, everyone. Lakeisha Hayes, community member.
Thanks, Lakeisha. Right.
Hi, you did say Laverne.
Hmm.
I'm Laverne Cunningham. Good to be here. I am currently a teacher of GED at Owens Community College, as well as an interested community member.
Michelle, you're on.
Oh, hi, I'm Michelle Williams, President of Lincoln Schools Community Coalition Neighborhood Association.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us today.
You're welcome.
Tina Hall, you don't have your video on, so I can't move you forward. If you could introduce yourself, please. So there. All right, come back around. All right, you can unmute Tashana.
Hello, my name is Tashana Isaac, and I currently work at the Goodwill as a project manager for the State of Course Reentry Program. And I am also a active member in the community and like to advocate and volunteer.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
And one last person that I see on my list. All right, Tisha, if you could unmute and introduce yourself.
Good evening. My name is Tisha Lawson. I'm with the Greater Toledo Community Foundation, but I'm also a resident of North Toledo. So I'm here to just observe and enjoy this time with so many familiar faces.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us. That's who I had in my list. So Amelia, you can take it away.
Great. So I want to start off by talking a little bit about who Reinvest Toledo is. Crystal's going to share a screen that has our mission and our vision statement on it. Relax, I'm not going to read it to you, I promise. So Crystal, you want to throw that screen up for me? Okay, so there's our mission and vision statement. If I had to summarize it in the words of Miss Amelia, I would simply say that Reinvest Toledo is about changing the narrative concerning our low to moderate income communities. We want to talk about the assets first and then tackle the challenges collectively. Now, what have we accomplished in the last 24 months? A lot. We have a strong infrastructure. Our board members and our previous advisory board have worked tirelessly with me to ensure that we have in fact laid a solid foundation for sustainability. In the world of advocacy, we have lifted Toledo up on a national platform as a result of our partnership with the National Community Reinvestment Coalition. Along with NCRC, we have been active around creating the community benefits agreements that impact the low to moderate income footprints in the market areas of our local banks. And simply that means we want to ensure that our financial partners locally make sure that dollars that they receive actually hit the LMI communities in a meaningful and impactful way. Education is one of the other key words you'll see in our mission statement. And as it relates to education, Reinvest Toledo has partnered with the Department of Neighborhoods to create and implement the Capacity Building Institute. This institute is providing educational and training material to increase organization capacity for those organizations that serve the low to moderate income community. We also have an educational track and training available to neighborhood leaders. We want to make sure our leaders are equipped with the tools that they need in order to ensure that what happens in their community, the goals that they want to achieve, that they can make sure that is reflected in the work that occurs. And connection. Connection is probably the one thing that we are most passionate about. And today's event is a great example of what that connectivity looks like. We want to ensure that our neighbors and stakeholders come together to create a collective agenda for effective change. Oftentimes we operate in silos, but Reinvest Toledo was created to provide that common table, if you will, to ensure that we can get together and decide collectively how to make sure things happen in a positive way. And probably one of the most exciting things we want to talk about before we hear from some of our board members is the fact that we'll be taking possession of our new office space on April 1st. We are moving into the Monroe Street Church. That's part of the Boomer community. We are really excited about providing a space for our coalition members to gather once we go back to face time. And we're happy to work alongside Pastor Larry Clark in empowering that community. Mr. Chair, would you please share with our guests what neighborhoods are represented in the coalition?
Thank you and good evening. At this time, again, I want to welcome all some of the neighborhoods that have invested and been a part of Reinvest Toledo. We have which was mentioned today on the call, the Lincoln Coalition, the Lincoln School Neighborhood Coalition, the Junction Coalition, the Broadway Community Coalition, BOOMA, which stands for Bancroft up in the Monroe area, East Toledo, the Borough Neighborhood Coalition, the North End Committee, and so many other community members. Again, we would like to thank you on behalf of Reinvest joining us today for our open house. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We also want to make sure that we mention our funding partners, the Lucas County Land Bank, the City of Toledo Department of Neighborhoods, the Lucas County Commissioners, I'm sorry about that, and the Multi-Faith Council. We have service partners. Now, please note that I said service and not programming, because Reinvest is not about duplicating programs. We are about providing services to the low to moderate income community that will help them to increase their capacity. So our service partners include the City of Toledo, once again, with the Capacity Building Institute. Our higher ed partners include Loras University and Bowling Green State University. They are working with us in creating a Change in the Narrative series, which we'll talk about more later. And we also have an intern leadership development project. Dr. Joyce Litton is the lead consultant on that particular project. Steve, would you please talk a little bit with our guests about our strategic plan and what our immediate goals are?
Yeah, I'd be glad to.
Thank you.
Am I going to pop up? Oh, there we go. Hello. Yeah, so it's a real pleasure to be here tonight. The board of Reinvest Toledo did have a strategic planning. Because of the pandemic, we weren't able to do kind of the normal get in a room together and, but we did it virtually. And it took, I think, about a month or so of meetings or more. We were led by a professional facilitator, which I think is really important. And we did develop a strategic plan, which we presented to our funding partners and others. Right now, one of the most pressing issues is a membership drive to attract neighborhood associations and organizations. And I will say from my perspective that together we're stronger, and that's why I'm here. So the Broadway Quarter Coalition represents the Old South End, residents, businesses, institutions, churches. And I came to Toledo in 2002 to work for Jack Ford as Economic Development Director, and there were probably 15 or so community development corporations. Today, there's basically one or two. And so I will say I believe that the current administration is focused on the neighborhood. I feel like the previous people, perhaps without naming names, were sort of downtown oriented. So I do think that their heart's in the right place, but nevertheless, joining together and pushing a common agenda on behalf of people who has very little voice is, I think, of utmost importance to all of us. So I appreciate your attendance tonight, but I really encourage you to join us, join us so that the city is broadly represented. I think it's going to help the people that we serve. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. That was awesome. So also a part of our strategic plan this year was to activate 2 of our committees that are in our bylaws. That's our Legislative Action and Policy Committee, affectionately known as LAP, and also our Voter Education. Please note, I said education and not registration committee, that is chaired by our Vice Chair, Dawn Frison. So I want to tell you a little bit about our LAP committee. First of all, it's chaired by our board secretary, Summer Claiborne, and also co-chaired by our community member, Lakeisha Hayes, whom you met earlier. The purpose of this committee is to empower residents of the LMI neighborhoods to become advocates for their own neighborhoods by sharing knowledge of the nuts and bolts of government, legislation, and policy, as well as connecting them to resources that will help develop their advocacy skills. And please know that we are shamelessly putting a plug in because we are recruiters. All right, Dawn, turn it over to you and ask you to share a little bit about the Voter Education Committee.
So as Amelia said, or as Crystal said, or Amelia, I'm Dawn Frison. I represent the Boomer community. I'm also the chair of the Voter Education Committee. And I think everybody on here probably understands the importance of voter education. I mean, everything that we're trying to do at Reinvest Toledo is dependent upon the LAP committee and voter education, because first of all, we have to educate people and let them know about the things that affect their lives. So I grew up in the Fulton neighborhood on Fulton Street, right by Victoria, near Central. And I rolled past there. I left and was gone for 15 years, moved to Cleveland, and I came back and I rolled past and I saw the house that I used to live in, and it was boarded up. And I thought, oh, and then I saw somebody open the door and come out. I just started crying because not only was that sad for me, but the neighborhood where I lived in only had like 3 houses left. And I thought, how must the children in this neighborhood feel going to school and they don't really even have anything to look at? Nobody is taking pride in their homes and things like that. It doesn't matter if you own them or rent them, So that's why I'm passionate. So when we talk about the Voter Education Committee, our purpose is to educate, to disseminate information to LMI communities by, information about the democratic process, voting, in-state, local, national primaries and things like that, but not to do all of that, to design and disseminate, but not necessarily to recreate the wheel. There are things out there, there are people out there that we need to get connected to, but I'm one person. So I'm also putting in a plug because anybody that is passionate about, voter education, and we know, it's a struggle. It's a struggle. I have to say to my own kids, did you vote? Did you vote? I mean, because we want to vote in the general elections, but we forget about the primaries, which are so important. So we talking about gerrymandering now and redistricting. All of that stuff is important, but how do people know it's important if we don't have anybody out there helping to spread the information? So that's what I'm passionate about. I'm passionate about all of it, but that's what I'm really passionate about, is disseminating information, getting it out there, educating people so that they can help somebody else along. Because I found that a lot of times we just vote Democratic, We don't know what those people stand for. We don't know anything about the issues. You know, we vote Democratic, and then when it comes down to the judges and things like that, we just either leave it blank or don't do anything. So we got to do our due diligence, but a lot of times people don't know that. So, you know, each one teach one. That's my motto. Join me.
And now everyone can see why I have such a passionate board and why I'm excited about this work. It's easy, it's a heavy lift, but it's much easier to do when I have individuals like the board members you have heard from who agree to work beside me tirelessly, once again, as volunteers to make sure we move the needle in a positive way in the low to moderate income communities. So everybody who knows Miss Amelia, and if you don't know me, you'll figure this out about me. You will not be surprised about what we're getting ready to do right now. We are going to ask you, individuals who have input and that inform our work, to raise your voice, in this case, your hand on Zoom, to answer two important questions. We'll pick one of them because of time, but we really want to hear from you, because at the end of the day, this is a valuable opportunity for us as well to get to know you and to understand more about what's happening in our community. So you have two questions. Again, pick one. And if you don't like to talk in a public space, you can share your responses in our chat box. That's fine. Crystal will be monitoring that as well. So our questions are on the screen. Why is there a disconnect between low to moderate neighborhoods, low to moderate income neighborhoods, and the broader community? Or can you tell me or share with us what you think is one of the most frequently overlooked assets found in the LMI communities? Because sometimes we know when we say low to moderate, the first thing they want to think is you got to pull out a checkbook to help, right? But there's value. And that's why we talk about changing the narrative here at Reinvest Toledo. So who wants to go first? Raise your hand and Crystal will monitor this process.
Anybody?
Because, you know, I can't call people. I know most of you. Okay, Steve raised his hand.
There we go.
So I wanted to address the first question. Why is there a disconnect between the LMI community and other communities?
Mm-hmm.
Racism. Hello, you know, governmental, corporate, religious attempts to confine certain groups to certain geographic areas that has been, you know, working for over 100 years. So that's kind of what we're up against. Not that it's impossible, but I'm just saying, let's get real about these issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Anyone else?
Okay.
I'm gonna put my brother Calvin on the spot. See, I want to hear from you from that North End committee. I want to hear my brother Calvin.
How you doing? How you doing? Appreciate that, Montrese. Well, I'm gonna elaborate on what is one frequent overlooked asset in the LMI community. I think it's our kids. I think we letting the brightest and best of our children get away to the streets. I feel like if we could catch these, if we can somehow challenge the streets to get our kids back and challenge them intellectually, instead of them focusing on, you know, trying to be, you know, the TikTok king. Let's focus on getting these kids and trying to weed and see the best and the brightest, because we letting some of the best and the brightest fall to the streets. And I think we got to catch them early, and we got to figure that out.
Mm-hmm. Great. Thank you.
Michelle.
Gallery view. And if there's anybody who has their hand up, then I'll be able to see them.
Miss Michelle has her hand up.
All righty, Michelle.
I would like to focus on the very first question because I had a conversation with myself and Mrs. Reddy over here in Inglewood. And one of the things that we are the most, disheartened about is, it goes back into history about the urban renewal projects that was supposed to take place back in the late 60s, early 70s, and that never happened. So we had to figure out a way, and some of those same people are still living in this area. So we had to figure out a way, how can we get these people back to the table and talk about some of the needs that they want to, what they want to see happen as far as fixing up their house, not building any new houses, but fixing up their houses, making sure that we become a village again. So I think, we have to kind of like look at that, kind of like look at the root of what happened, what happened to the disconnect between the city and the low to moderate income people, the disconnect, all the things that was promised to them never did happen. So.
Thank you, Ms. Michelle. That was powerful.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I have a comment in the chat. Oh, Dawn has her hand up, and then we'll go to the comment in chat. Let me pull Dawn up.
So I wanted to kind of piggyback on what Calvin said, but take another kind of spin. I have a 41-year-old son, and I really want to talk about the education, the school system, the public school systems and things like that. My son, he did just enough to get by in every grade. And he was very smart, but he was never challenged. And so because he wasn't challenged, he was disruptive, and nobody ever, they always, and I think, I understand that some teachers, all they get to do, they don't get to teach, that all they get to do is discipline. But then we also have, I remember at a time when there was teachers who really cared and who really worked. I have a teacher who I can remember from way back in the day, like when I was in elementary school. So my son was he was in high school, and almost, a year away from graduation, had about 5 credit hours. I said, boy, you are wasting your time and these people's time. So I was working at Davis College at the time. I brought home a difficult GED test for him to take. He passed it, no question, and went and took his GED and came out. Our kids have a tendency to skip, to be skipped or to slip through the cracks because nobody wants to really look at them. They see surface stuff. I remember, there was a time where teachers would spend time with you and talk to you and see things, but I feel like, and we know, education in other neighborhoods where the property taxes are higher, they get more books, they get heat, they get better lunches, they get all of those things. And I just think, our kids get left behind in education too. They're not all bad kids, but they can get labeled as a bad kid, and then that's it. It followed him. I had to have a meeting with Woodward High School before he could even go in there, step foot in there from Leverett, because of what they said. And he didn't fight or nothing like that. He was just silly. He talked too much, but he was bored.
Can I piggyback off of what Ms. Ryson just said?
Absolutely.
What I wanted to say was, what you just said, Ms. Ryson, is very, very important, because I'm gonna use myself as an example. Me personally, I was a very bright student. I caught on quick. So I'm not trying to blow my own horn, but it would take me 1 day to learn what an average student would take 5 days. So what would end up happening was I would get done with my work fast, homework fast, and then I would become a problem because it really, my issue wasn't in the school, in the books. My issue was after school. My issue was before school and during school, when you have issues going on at home and you have problems with parents. Teenagers, kids have problems. And me personally, I was so bright that I was quick at learning. So after school was my issue. It's like I'm thinking we have to get something. And the reason I say that, because there was a principal named Mr. Coleman in Sky and rest his soul. I don't know if you live or not, but Mr. Coleman, he was one of the guys that he taught me a lesson. He seen my potential, but he seen that I was in poverty. So on Christmas time, Mr. Coleman would come to the projects where I live and he would bring me Christmas gifts. He'll bring me an Atari 26 and he'll bring some games with it. And back then, that was hefty, But what it did, it was an after school thing that he probably could have got fired for. You know what I'm saying? I introduced him to my mother. He came and seen it wasn't nothing but one couch in the house. So he seen my battle. But what he did was he went out of his way to reach out to a child, and which made me graduate, which made me go to college, which made me who I am today because of that one effort that I can remember, which was more gestures I had during life. That's one I'm just making an example out of. So the point I'm making is this: if we have to find a way to snatch our kids one at a time, depending on what we need to do to grab that potential out of them. Because I know personally, I could be more than I am today if somebody would have seen this potential a long time ago. So the point I'm making is that we need to get after school activities. We need to get before school activities. We need in school activities. We need to first identify the bright students, identify the bad students, see who can make it, who can't make it. We need to put everybody where they're supposed to be and make sure we leave nobody behind, but we have to get something going on. We need funds for after school programs. We need funds to get these kids, because if we don't, how can you hear me out? What Miss Lady said earlier about our neighborhood and investing in everything. I done seen men in my neighborhood go get bars. And I told them, invest in security. Don't invest in making your bar pretty. How can you invest in making your city pretty when it's not secure? So what happened was, all my friends, they had a couple Arabs, they wouldn't have invested in bars, they made them real pretty. But they didn't have no security. So when violence came, people tore up their bar, a couple people got shot, a couple people got killed in their bar, they bar shut down. It was a total loss, close to bankruptcy. But anyway, you have to, you got to start from the problem. You cannot say we're going to make our city pretty when everybody's scared to live there. And in order to make it a safe place, you got to get our kids under control. In order to get our kids under control, you got to give them attention. In order to give them attention, they got to know we care. They got to see it. And that's just the point I'm trying to make when I say the biggest asset in our community to me is our kids. And that's the reason, and to elaborate more on that, that is our mission statement.
Thanks.
Our mission statement is safety and scholarship for kids, and that's what we all about. So
thank you.
I'd like to thank Ms. Friesen for touching on that.
Thanks, Calvin. We're gonna move on. Tisha's been waiting for a little while, and then we have a lot of comments in the chat. So Tisha, you go ahead, and then I'll bring up the comments in the chat.
Okay. So I just want to say I came here to listen. However, Miss Amelia asked a question, and I feel obliged to answer. So, but I want to say that to me, both questions are actually interchangeable. So I feel like one response is going to answer both questions.
Okay.
But I'm going to address the overlooked assets. I would say that some of the overlooked assets are actually the leadership that lives within our community, because I live in a low mod income area, still do. I would say that there's actual leadership that lives in these areas that is often overlooked. There's skills that live in these areas that are often overlooked until there's an opportunity to have those resources milked, to have those assets milked for grant dollars, for government funding, for whatever, which in turns, because others are receiving the benefit from those dollars, is going outside of the neighborhood. When that happens, only thing it does to our community is cause distrust, because you gave the information, you answered the question, but you're not seeing the fruits of it. It just causes distrust, it causes frustration for communities that are capable of leading, shaping, and defining the actual work that we know happens, instead of always having to cater to funders that care a lot about grammatical grant writing instead of actual work, sometimes, which does happen. But I will say that the asset itself are the people that are often overlooked.
I agree. Tina, thank you so much, Tisha. Tina also made that exact same point. I'm going to move back to gallery view here so we can see everybody in the chat. Tina mentioned that exact same thing, that people are our greatest asset. Laverne mentioned that an important asset is the public library, volunteerism and education opportunities. And she asked a good question. Do people know about the PCS for People program? Laverne, can you talk a little bit more about that?
There's a program that is offering refurbished computers that have been donated by businesses. And you can apply for those through the public library system. We are trying to get them for free, but there is I don't know, there's something political going on, so that there is a charge that was coming up for people who were clearly financially able or unable to make the purchase. But this program, if you apply and don't get financial aid, then it's still only $80 for a desktop. And I'm like, that's such an incredible resource. I mean, you know, that's the PCs for People program.
Thanks for sharing that.
Sure.
Frankie Young joined us after we did our introductions. She left some comments here. She said, when we talk about school, looking at the best and brightest is fine, but we often overlook the hardworking average child who was resilient and can also be successful. So I think that's a true statement when we think about the school programs that are available. They have the gifted school program and the students that need the most help. But that middle group of students, they linger in the middle, they get bored. I'm the mom of boys. And so in the public school system, really any school system, my younger son went to St. John's, he was acclimated by that point and could keep up. But instead of saying, oh, this child is smart, he's just bored, they say this child has a behavior issue. And we know about that prison to, the school to prison pipeline and what that does. And once you get a child disengaged in education, they're not going to likely pick it back up. And so then it creates this situation where now I'm being moved forward to these next classes and next classes, and I stopped learning in the 4th grade, and it just never goes great from that point. So Frankie, I definitely agree with that statement about those children that are in the middle being stuck a lot of time. Then Laverne also mentioned showing that people care personally, and how that was once said a lighted school program. There was once I'm not sure what that means, a lighted school program. And
We used to
then,
have a lighted schoolhouse program after school. I remember parents and teachers, not teachers. Well, my parent was a teacher. Parents and students could go to the lighted schoolhouse program.
oh,
Yeah.
like the schoolhouse was open after hours? Is that what they mean by
Yes.
lighted? Oh,
Yes.
okay.
Yes. So, and that's, I don't know what happened to that program. I don't know. I just don't know. But I know my mother went and learned how to make those hats.
Mhm.
And
And then one
it-
other comment here, Frankie said she thought it was important to ask the community what the community thinks. And I think that's a big tenet for Reinvest Toledo. Amelia, would you like to address the way you guys approach that?
I mean, certainly, I think that she's absolutely correct. I mean, that is the premise of why Reinvest Toledo was created as a coalition, because we recognize in our community, there was not a consistent voice spoken on behalf of the low to moderate income communities. The decision makers made sometimes, I'll give them grace and say, they were sincere in their efforts, but they made decisions based on their own frame of reference, how they were going to help a population of people that they never invited to the table. So our responsibility as a coalition is to ensure that individuals like yourselves and organizations that serve the low to moderate income community get to those tables. As a matter of fact, we don't have to go to those tables. When we come together, we invite them to this table. And when they come to this table, you are the host and you get to talk about what's happening and you get to tell the decision makers what's needed, so they don't have to make assumptions and create this space in the name of helping that's ineffective. Because quite frankly, if it was effective, we wouldn't need this coalition. We wouldn't have to raise our voices so frequently and so loudly on behalf of the low to moderate income communities. I also want to take this moment to introduce Dr. V. Rosser from the Bowling Green State University. She joined us late, and I'd just like to hit pause and ask Dr. V, welcome. It's good to see you. If you just want to talk a moment about why the relationship with higher ed is important, why the connection, I should say, to Reinvest Toledo is important for the work that you do.
Well, and I'm sorry I couldn't join you later. I was talking to a student. I mean, one is, as we would say, Miss Amelia, I'll join any program that she's leading because I've respected her work for a long time. I work in civic engagement at BGSU. I actually don't live in the area. I live up in Ypsilanti. I think trying to make sure the resources and strengths of higher ed partners is trying to make them available, trying to figure out where we have skills and assets to try and support a thriving community. Universities don't always get it right, but I think part of my job is to try and connect resources, and that communities should benefit more from having higher eds in their region than more than the opportunity to go to school. I mean, I think that's a key piece in terms of access, but I've just been trying to join some of the conversations to figure out whether we do have assets and resources that we can mobilize to try and support the kind of initiatives that Reinvest Toledo is engaged in, because the work is very important. So I appreciate being able to be present and to listen, to learn, and see if I can could contribute something that can help move the conversation forward.
Thank you.
We have another question. We're from Tashana. Give me 1 second. I will move you up there. Okay.
Hello. I actually don't have a question. I think I would like to answer the question to the first one. What is one frequently overlooked asset found in low to moderate income communities? And I would like to say the church. Me being a active in church, elder, one of the things that I noticed is that the leaders in the church are not in the community. I want to speak from one area as far as the gun violence. There's been a lot of shootings, and you have Toledo is called Holy Toledo. That's one of the things that we know for. We got churches on so many corners, but we don't see the leaders outside of the four walls and actually engaging in the community to let people know that one of the things because the Lord put it on my heart and I started doing outreach and going on the corners and actually praying. And one of the things that the Lord pointed out was that people do not think that they are loved and forgiven. And I'm not saying we all have different religious beliefs and different things, but the church has a major component in what it is as far as community and relationships. And if the church is not left out, or if nobody's putting pressure on these churches, we got leaders, we especially in a Black community, low to moderate, it has been pushed so much for us to come into the church, pay our tithes, and you're going to be blessed. And people are leaving out of the church the same way they came in, with no results, because the ministries and the things that need to be put in place to build the people up are not. And so there is a breakdown in the leadership, what the roles and responsibilities are. And you have a lot of broken families. When they don't have nowhere else to go, they're turning to the church, they're turning to leaders, and they're not getting the answers that they need to stabilize and sustain themselves. So I think that there is a major disconnect with the church. And if we, as a Black people, or whatever color we are, if we are putting our money into the church, but there is no result, the other thing is that our people are oppressed. I now go to a church that is predominantly white. That's just where I'm at right now, no particular reason, but my pastor is Black, and he's young. And I see the difference. I see nobody wears masks in there. It's the church is full. They have been open. And then our Black churches, most of them are closed. A lot of people are sick. Our people have died. We have the highest death rates. We don't have people helping us. We are not educated in our health and in our resources, which there are business and leaders that are there, but I'm speaking from just a church standpoint as far as the education and the connection and communication and leaders being held accountable for what they stand for, and when they have their doors open and when people are coming in and they are not getting what they need.
Awesome. Thank you.
We have just one other thing in the chat, one other comment, maybe two. Lakeisha mentioned that the disconnect came because of the systems that impact families in the neighborhoods, and that those systems are not interested in truly helping because their processes are oppressive. Anybody want to comment further in that space? Or Lakeisha, did you have any additional things you wanted to share?
Good evening, everyone. I mean, I can get on a whole soapbox about systems and how they have had a negative effect on the low and my community. But because of the processes that are put in place for a lot of self-sufficiency programs, you know, from workforce development to education to housing, you know, it's like on one hand, they're saying, okay, yeah, we're here to help. And this program is so great and you should apply it and it'll make your life so much better. But the process itself is, it's very discouraging. And it has an oppressive overtone. And I think that is what creates a sense of distrust. And so I think because of that, the disconnect is there. And a lot of times it continues to widen that gap because no one is really taking the time out to walk through with the families that truly need the help. And so they just kind of get lost in that process. Mm-hmm. And it's just an ongoing, you know, thing. And so that's where that comment came from.
Thank you so much. And then everyone, you will notice that Tisha left a document in the chat about the funding opportunities through the Toledo Community Foundation. She also provided her email address. So thank you so much for that. There's a couple other comments in there, but Amelia, I'm gonna turn it back over to you.
I am so doing a happy dance in my chair, right?
Can I say?
Oh, yes.
Mr. Chair, please do.
Wow, and I'm going to piggyback on that excitement that our executive director, Ms. Amelia, has just listening to the responses and the care of what individuals are sharing today. I want to not just offer one of the issues and why it was important for me to be a part of Reinvest, but also talk from a solution-based model too. So I would like to address the second question, that is what is one of the frequently overlooked assets found in LMI communities? Relationships. We tend to throw relationships away, but that is our strength. Society will sometimes have us wanting to look in other places when we already have the relationships. That's what make this Zoom meeting so strong, because you see someone, someone has your walk, someone has your story. And so as a solution base, and as we move forward, if we do not continue to pour into why relationships have power to create change, we often hear we don't find individuals who's qualified. Well, how about we invest in qualify the call? Someone took an investment on each one of you and poured into your lives. And man, are we grateful. I heard Calvin speak to that earlier. I heard our Vice Chair, Dawn Price, speak to that as well in terms of her son. Someone invested in us. So as we talk about what is one of the overlooked items in the LMI communities, the power of relationships. I take pride in telling people I am from Belmont Avenue. When you see Belmont Avenue and it's stated in Toledo, Ohio, what side, where's your family from? Belmont. And I say it with pride. In fact, I have made it my business to join Reinvest Toledo, the City Park League, so that when the work is done, and I don't know what that may be, I will be done before the work, if you would, in that phrase. We talk about the historical landmarks that's in our neighborhoods, in our community. In fact, Reinvest has taken on a project to go back to the neighborhoods and get those relationship stories, those people that meant something. Judge Duhart's father is in our neighborhood. We did a tour this past summer, and I'll move on. We did a tour this past summer, and it was the urban cultural experience, and it was a part of the Soheim, with the Soheim Classic that came to Toledo. And Albert took the lead, and rest assured, individuals who went on the tour went to different landmarks in our neighborhoods that was someone's family member, someone had ties to. And so when we talk about some of the things that's overlooked, I encourage, as a solution to the issue of overlooked assets in the low to moderate income community, continue to share the stories of the individuals and the neighbors and the family members that come from the neck of the woods that many of and each of us come from. Thank you so much. The power of relationships. Thank you, Ms. Amelia.
You're welcome. Ms. Lawson?
I missed that, sorry.
So I had so much swimming through my head listening to everybody, because it is so huge about what low to moderate income neighborhoods and communities, what's being overlooked. And I think the biggest thing that is being overlooked is the fact that our tax dollars, we go to work just like people who live in Sylvania. We go to work just like people who live in Ottawa Hills. We go to work just like people who live in Perrysburg. but yet our tax dollars is totally being disrespected because we can't live like they do because it's low to moderate income. How disrespectful is that? So here, our voices is not being respected, let alone our tax dollars. You have a responsibility that when we say, come clean up this mess, you need to come clean up the mess because my tax dollars is already paid for it. You have a responsibility to listen when we say that. We want our kids to get the same textbooks. We want our kids to get the same education because just because it's low to moderate income, they are sometimes, I think, the first thing that they think about is low. And what is low to most people? You're robbing, stealing, and killing. There's no in between that of you are an honest taxpayers that deserve everything just like anybody else in anybody else's neighborhood.
Awesome.
So what am I saying is that we talked about education and so on and so forth. Now, when we talk about education, we can go just a little bit further because we are not, the parents today is not the parents that we were. So when we're talking about education, it's not just the education of the child. It's a lot of times we got to educate the parents to how to make sure that they get the kids together to get to school. So that's a whole different other conversation. That is a whole lot of things that we also need to invest in as well as our children. But the bottom line is our tax dollars is being disrespected at every angle.
I touch on something real quick, Ms. Amelia.
Well, we have 3 minutes. If you can do it in one, Mr. Calvin, that's great because we have a raffle prize we want to share away, and also we want to do our call to action. So go, 1 minute.
I just want to let everybody know that my whole issue, we need a sense of urgency for the simple fact that this program that you guys we all are trying to start right here, this reinvest thing, this coalition thing, we need to hurry up, get it done so we can pass it on to our grandkids for the simple fact we need something that they can go to that they can depend on, where they know investors can't come into their city and take over. They know little thugs can't come shoot up their neighborhood and take over. They know they got a reinvest coalition or whatever we're gonna call this. We need a sense of urgency because we need to lead this to these children and we need to leave it powerful. So whatever we got going on here, we need to have a sense of urgency. Let's get this going. Let's make it powerful as we can. When we leave it to the next generation, all they got to do is walk into it. They ain't got to put it together. They ain't got to guess. They can just walk into it and keep it moving. And make sure when we say this name, it means something. You know what I'm saying? That's what I'm here for. I'm in a sense of urgency right now.
All right, then. I got my marching orders, urgency right now. And so that leads to the next item on the agenda, the final item, and that's our call to action. And it's really simple. We want you to consider becoming a part of who we are. Whether you are an individual who wants to volunteer on a committee, if you belong to or are leader in a neighborhood association, join us. If you represent an organization, we love to have member organizations to be a part of this work as well. Because as Calvin said, there is urgency. If not now, when? And if not us, then who? Crystal, do you want to tell everyone about the membership form? And then let's do our raffle.
Sure. We just put in the chat a link to an online membership form. So you can click on that link while you're in the meeting. It will open up on your computer. And then once you get off of the meeting, you can go in and fill that form out. Also, you'll receive a copy of this recording and those links again in an email. Once we wrap up with the program, probably get that sometime tomorrow. So you will be able to share that also with any other organizations that you know who might be interested. So you'll have the video so they can learn more about it, and also the link to register for membership with Reinvest Toledo. And let me switch sharing. we have a raffle for everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. And we are going to raffle off a Texas Roadhouse $10 gift card for all of the individuals that are here. So let me go in and find that screen, get it ready for you. Give me 1 second. Moving more buttons than I realized I was going to be moving.
Crystal, you did a really great job in operating this Zoom open house. Can we all just kind of show some love and just put the heart up for Crystal, because she really did a great job.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Now, of course, thank you so much for saying that. The people that are on Reinvest Toledo's board are not on this list. So we're going to spin the wheel and see what happens here. So here we go. Of course. I forgot to take Alan off the list. We have to do it again. Sorry.
Alan's not here.
No, Alan's not here. I took everybody else off. I left Alan on. Whoops. Here we go. So that means round 2. Here we go. Tina, is Tina here?
Yes,
I am.
Hey,
Thank you.
You are
Can I throw a
welcome.
monkey? Can I throw a monkey wrench in your thing? Can you do the drawing one more time, because I'm vegan and I can't eat anything at Texas Roadhouse and I'm on a diet.
Uh-oh. What about, do you have a pet, Tina?
Do I have a pet?
Yep.
Yes, I do.
I can switch you out and give you a $10 PetSmart.
That'd be good.
Hey, awesome sauce.
Thank you.
You are welcome. Now, Tina, what I need you to do is just, if you can instant like chat me over here and give me your address, I'll get this in the mail, or I can shoot you an email and get it from you later.
Okay, I'll put it in the chat.
All right, awesome sauce.
Thank
Congratulations.
you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Okay, it's 7:03. We're gonna get ready to say goodbye to everyone. If you could do me just one more small favor on your way out the door, put in the chat one word to describe how you feel about this open house. What are you walking away feeling? Just throw it in the chat. I appreciate each and every one of you. I want to connect with you if you have more questions about Reinvest and how we're operating and what we are about. Let's talk about it. Thanks again, everyone.
See our contact information here. We also want to say thank you to the Multi-Faith Council of Northwest Ohio and the MLK 40 Days of Service. We received some support to put this event on from these organizations, and we just want to say thank you so much for that support. Thanks everyone for participating. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.